Pay attention to the quiet streets of Ibstock at 3 in the morning on November 15th. A 15-year-old Kayleigh Haywood runs for her life, barefoot and half-naked, fleeing the man who just held her prisoner. And by the time the sun rose over Leicestershire that morning, she would be dead. Beaten to death with a brick in a field, her young life stolen in the most brutal way imaginable. She is screaming for help, but her pursuer is faster. He catches her in the darkness and drags her away to a field just a mile from here. This is the story of how a teenage girl was systematically hunted, psychologically trapped, and brutally murdered, and how her death would ultimately save countless other children from suffering the same fate. This is Kayleigh's story. Kayleigh Haywood was everything a 15-year-old girl should be. Her teachers described her as headstrong and independent, the kind of student who spoke her mind and wasn't afraid to be herself. She was full of life, full of dreams, full of that particular energy that comes with being young and believing the world is full of possibilities. She lived in Measham, Leicestershire, a small, tight-knit town where everyone knew everyone, where parents felt comfortable letting their children walk to school, where the community looked out for one another. Like millions of other teenagers in 2015, Kayleigh lived a significant portion of her social life online. She had a Facebook account where she connected with school friends, shared photos, posted updates about her day, and chatted about the things 15-year-olds care about: music, celebrities, boys, weekend plans. Her parents knew she was on social media. They'd had conversations about being safe online, about not talking to strangers, about being careful what information she shared. Kayleigh was a smart girl. She understood the basics of internet safety. But what Kayleigh didn't understand, what most teenagers don't understand, is that predators have evolved. They know exactly what to say to make her feel special, mature, desired. They know how to spot vulnerability and exploit it with surgical precision. And in November 2015, someone who understood exactly how to weaponize those desires was about to enter her life. While Kayleigh sat in her bedroom, safe in her family home, typing on her phone and scrolling through Facebook, a predator was watching, studying profiles, looking for his next victim. And when he saw Kayleigh Haywood's profile, he decided she would be perfect. His name was Luke Harlow. He was 27 years old, nearly twice Kayleigh's age, an adult man with a fully developed brain and the life experience to know exactly what he was doing. And on Halloween night, October 31st, 2015, he sent Kayleigh a friend request and a message. 3 simple words that would set in motion a chain of events ending in tragedy. Hey, how are you? October 31st, 2015. Halloween night. While other teenagers were out at parties, trick-or-treating with younger siblings, or watching horror movies with friends, Kayleigh was home, relaxed and comfortable, scrolling through Facebook. That's when the message notification appeared on her screen. Hey, how are you? It was from Luke Harlow, a name she didn't recognize, a face she'd never seen before. Kayleigh did what many cautious teenagers would do. She asked who he was. Who are you? She typed back, a perfectly reasonable question when a stranger messages you out of nowhere. But Luke Harlow was good at this. Very good. Whatever he said in response, whatever combination of words he used, it worked. Because within just 10 minutes of that initial exchange, Kayleigh had given him her phone number. 10 minutes. That's all it took for Harlow to convince a 15-year-old girl who'd never met him to give him direct access to her personal phone. What happened over the next 13 days was a textbook example of grooming, a masterclass in psychological manipulation that should be studied by anyone who wants to understand how predators operate. Harlow and Kayleigh exchanged 2,643 messages. Let that number sink in for a moment. 2,643 messages in 13 days. That's an average of over 200 messages per day. That's a message every few minutes from the moment Kayleigh woke up until the moment she went to sleep at night. It was constant, relentless, overwhelming. Harlow told her she was beautiful. He told her she was special, different from other girls, more mature than her age. He told her how lucky he was to have found her, how much he cared about her, how he couldn't stop thinking about her. Every message was carefully designed to build her up, to make her feel valued and desired in ways that teenage girls desperately crave. He asked about her day, her interests, her dreams. He made her feel heard, understood, important. He called her his girlfriend. And Kayleigh, like any 15-year-old girl who suddenly has the undivided attention of an older man who seems to absolutely adore her, believed him. Why wouldn't she? He was spending hours every day talking to her, complimenting her, making her feel like the most important person in his world. The sheer volume of messages created an artificial sense of intimacy, as if they'd known each other for years instead of days. What Kayleigh didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that at the exact same time, Harlow was sending nearly identical messages to at least two other girls. One was just 13 years old. Another was 15, like Kayleigh. All three girls believed they were in a relationship with Luke Harlow. All three girls thought they were special, that they were different, that they were his girlfriend. By November 13th, after nearly 2 weeks of constant communication and psychological manipulation, Harlow felt confident enough to make his move. He told Kayleigh he wanted to meet her. More than that, he wanted her to spend the night at his flat in Ibstock, a village not far from Measham. It would be special, he promised. Their first night together. Their chance to finally be alone, to take their relationship to the next level. He painted a picture of romance, of intimacy, of something magical. But there was a problem, he explained. Her parents wouldn't understand. They wouldn't approve of her dating an older man. They might try to stop her from seeing him, so she would need to lie to them, he said. Tell them she was staying with a friend. It would be their secret, their special time together. Once she turned 16, they could be open about their relationship, but for now, it needed to be private. Kayleigh agreed. She had been so thoroughly manipulated over those 13 days, had received so many messages telling her how special she was, that she trusted Harlow completely. On Friday evening, November 13th, she told her parents she was staying at a friend's house. Her father, trusting his daughter as he always had, drove her to Ibstock Community College and dropped her off. He watched her walk away, had no reason to worry, and drove home. Kayleigh arrived at Harlow's flat feeling excited and nervous. This was it, the moment she'd been building toward for 2 weeks. She was about to meet the man who had made her feel so incredibly special, who couldn't seem to get enough of talking to her, who had convinced her she was his girlfriend. She believed she was about to have a romantic evening with her boyfriend. The reality was unspeakably different. Saturday, November 14th. Kayleigh contacted her family in the morning. Everything seemed fine, normal even. She was having a good time, she told them. Her parents had no reason to worry. Their daughter was where she said she'd be, doing what teenagers do when they stay at friends' houses. But as Saturday wore on, the situation inside Luke Harlow's flat was changing in ways Kayleigh's family couldn't have imagined in their worst nightmares. That evening, Harlow did something that would seal Kayleigh's fate. He introduced her to his next-door neighbor, a man named Stephen Beedman. Beedman was 29 years old, and according to later court testimony, Harlow told him casually that he had a bird at his house. Not a girlfriend, not a young woman he cared about. A bird, a piece of slang that reduced Kayleigh to an object, something to be used. The two men looked at 15-year-old Kayleigh Haywood and saw an opportunity. As Saturday night descended into the early hours of Sunday morning, the situation in that flat transformed from uncomfortable to nightmarish. Between 9 o'clock on Saturday evening and 3 o'clock on Sunday morning, a 6-hour period that must have felt like an eternity to Kayleigh, she was held prisoner. The door was locked. She couldn't leave. The man she thought was her caring boyfriend revealed himself to be something else entirely. Kayleigh was given large quantities of alcohol, far more than a 15-year-old girl's body could handle. She became increasingly intoxicated, her ability to resist or fight back diminishing with each drink. While she was drunk and vulnerable, Harlow sexually touched her. This was the same man who had spent 2 weeks telling her how much he cared about her, how special she was, how he would never hurt her. Every word had been a lie designed to get her exactly where she was now, trapped, intoxicated, and helpless. And then Stephen Beedman sexually assaulted her. Kayleigh was drunk, terrified, and imprisoned in a flat with 2 adult men who had revealed themselves to be monsters. The boyfriend fantasy had shattered completely. She understood now that she was in danger, real danger. At some point during those dark hours, something inside Kayleigh shifted from fear to desperate survival instinct. Maybe she tried to fight back. Maybe she threatened to scream to tell the police, to tell her parents. Maybe Beedman's violence escalated, and she realized if she stayed in that flat, she would die there. Whatever the trigger, Kayleigh made a split-second decision that showed incredible courage. She ran. In the early hours of Sunday morning, November 15th, while most of Ibstock slept, Kayleigh Haywood fled that flat with everything she had. She was naked from the waist down, barefoot, and terrified beyond measure. But she ran anyway. She ran toward help, toward safety, toward home. She ran toward life. A neighbor, unable to sleep, heard the commotion outside. Looking out their window into the dark street below, they witnessed a scene that seemed impossible, like something from a horror film. A teenage girl, partially naked, was running desperately through the village streets. Behind her, a man was chasing her down like an animal. Kayleigh must have been running on pure adrenaline. Her bare feet pounded against the cold November pavement. Her lungs burned, her heart hammered. But she kept running because she knew that if she stopped, if she let him catch her, something terrible would happen. For a few desperate moments, she must have thought she could make it. She must have thought that if she could just run fast enough, reach a main road, bang on someone's door, scream loud enough, someone would help her. But Stephen Beedman was faster. He caught her in the darkness, grabbed her, and Kayleigh's hope for escape died. Instead of letting her go, instead of realizing the magnitude of what they had done and allowing her to flee to safety, Beedman made a choice that would end in murder. He forced Kayleigh to walk, dragged her when she wouldn't move, marched her for 1.5 miles across rough, dark ground. Kayleigh, barefoot and half naked in the November cold, was forced to walk through fields and undergrowth, every step taking her further from help, further from civilization, further from any chance of survival. Where were they going? She must have known by then that Beedman wasn't taking her back to the flat. He was taking her somewhere remote, somewhere no one would hear her scream. When they reached an isolated area near a stream, surrounded by hedgerows and undergrowth, Beedman sexually assaulted her again. And when he was finished violating her, he picked up a brick, and he beat 15-year-old Kayleigh Haywood to death. Sunday, November 15th, when Kayleigh didn't come home and stopped responding to her parents' messages and calls, her family knew immediately that something was wrong. After hours of trying to reach Kayleigh and getting no response, the Haywood family contacted Leicestershire police and reported their daughter missing. Leicestershire police immediately launched a massive search operation. More than 300 officers were deployed to search for Kayleigh. They combed through fields and forests, searched abandoned buildings, dragged bodies of water, checked CCTV footage from every camera in the area. They went door to door in Measham and the surrounding villages, showing Kayleigh's photograph, asking if anyone had seen her, desperately hopping for a lead. Behind the scenes, while the physical search continued, investigators were working around the clock analyzing Kayleigh's digital footprint. They obtained access to her phone records, her social media accounts, her messages, trying to piece together her last known movements and contacts. And that's when they discovered the messages. Thousands upon thousands of them, all exchanged with a man named Luke Harlow. The sheer volume was staggering. As detectives scrolled through 2,643 messages, they began to understand what had happened. They were looking at a textbook grooming case. They could see how Harlow had built trust, manufactured intimacy, and manipulated Kayleigh over the course of 13 days. They could trace the psychological tactics he'd used, the compliments, the constant attention, the manufactured sense of a relationship. It was calculated, systematic, and devastatingly effective. On Monday, November 16th, just one day after Kayleigh was reported missing, police arrested Luke Harlow. They also arrested his neighbor, Stephen Beedman. Both men were brought in for questioning in connection with Kayleigh's disappearance. The interviews were tense, careful, methodical. Officers needed to understand what had happened, where Kayleigh was, and whether there was any chance she was still alive. As detectives questioned the two men, they began to piece together the events of that weekend. They learned about the imprisonment, about the alcohol, about the sexual assault. But Kayleigh herself remained missing. Where was she? Was she being held somewhere? Had she been taken to another location? Was she still alive somewhere, injured and unable to call for help? The questions multiplied faster than the answers arrived. On Tuesday, November 17th, a member of the public made a discovery that would prove crucial to the investigation. While walking in the area, they found Kayleigh's mobile phone lying on the ground. The device that had been her lifeline, that had received thousands of Harlow's manipulative messages, was now a piece of evidence in what was increasingly looking like a murder investigation. The phone was immediately bagged and sent for forensic analysis. As investigators continued digging deeper into Luke Harlow's digital life and online activities, they uncovered evidence that transformed this case from a tragedy into something even more sinister. The 2,643 messages between Harlow and Kayleigh weren't unique. They weren't special. They weren't evidence of some twisted, genuine relationship. They were part of a pattern, a system, a predatory operation that Harlow had been running simultaneously with multiple victims. Harlow had been grooming at least 2 other girls at the exact same time he was grooming Kayleigh. One of these girls was just 13 years old, barely a teenager, still a child in every meaningful sense. The other was 15, the same age as Kayleigh. Both girls had received nearly identical messages to the ones Kayleigh received. Both girls had been told they were beautiful, special, different from other girls. Both girls believed they were in a relationship with Luke Harlow. Both girls thought they were his girlfriend. Both girls had been completely deceived. The realization sent shockwaves through the investigation team. They weren't dealing with a one-off crime of opportunity or a relationship that had gone tragically wrong. They were dealing with a serial predator who had systematically refined his approach to grooming vulnerable teenage girls. Harlow had perfected a formula, and he was executing it with multiple victims simultaneously. By the time Harlow asked to meet in person, his victims trusted him completely. He had spent days or weeks breaking down their natural defenses, building up their sense of connection to him, and manufacturing a relationship that felt real to them. They believed they were meeting their boyfriend, someone who cared about them deeply. They had no idea they were walking into a trap. The most disturbing realization of all hit the investigation team and Kayleigh's family with devastating force. The grooming had happened entirely on Kayleigh's phone. It had occurred in her bedroom in her home while her loving parents were just downstairs. The predator had invaded their house without ever physically entering it. He had stolen their daughter's trust, manipulated her emotions, and set the trap that would kill her, all through a screen. Her parents had been right there, trying their best to keep their child safe, and they'd never heard a sound. They'd never suspected a thing. This was the twist that made everyone involved in the case feel sick. This wasn't random. This wasn't a crime of passion or a situation that spiraled out of control. This was calculated, systematic, and repeatable. Harlow had been doing this to multiple girls simultaneously. He had refined his approach. He knew exactly what he was doing, and if he hadn't been caught, if Kayleigh's disappearance hadn't led police directly to him, he would have continued doing this to more and more victims. The 2 other girls Harlow had been grooming were immediately contacted by police and provided with support. They were shocked to discover they weren't special, that the relationship they thought they had was a lie, that they had been one of multiple targets being manipulated at the same time. The realization was devastating for them, but they had been saved. Unlike Kayleigh, they would survive. But the knowledge of how close they had come to suffering the same fate would haunt them. Wednesday, November 18th, 2015, at approximately 10 o'clock that night, police officers conducting a methodical search of areas surrounding Ibstock, working under harsh portable lights in the November darkness, made a discovery near the A447 road north of the village. Hidden in dense lakeside undergrowth and a hedgerow near a stream, concealed from casual view, they found a body. Post-mortem examination conducted by forensic pathologists revealed the full horror of what had been done to Kayleigh in her final moments. The cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. The weapon used was identified as a brick, a common house brick that Stephen Beedman had picked up and used to beat a 15-year-old girl to death. The examination revealed multiple impact sites. This hadn't been 1 or 2 blows. Beedman had hit her again and again and again. The violence had been sustained, brutal, and ultimately fatal. The forensic evidence confirmed what investigators had already suspected from witness statements. Kayleigh had been sexually assaulted twice. DNA evidence from both assaults was recovered and analyzed. The first assault had occurred in Harlow's flat while Kayleigh was drunk and imprisoned. The second had occurred in the field, after Beedman had caught her fleeing, after he had marched her 1.5 miles across rough ground, in the location where he would ultimately kill her. For Kayleigh's family, the discovery brought their worst nightmare crashing into reality. The daughter they had reported missing 5 days ago, the girl they had never stopped hoping to find alive, was dead. Stephen Beedman faced the full weight of justice. He admitted to the murder and sexual assault of Kayleigh Haywood. In July 2016, he was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 35 years before he could even be considered for parole. He died in prison at HMP Wakefield on April 8th, 2021, at the age of just 34. Luke Harlow admitted to grooming and sexual activity with a child. He was also found guilty of false imprisonment following a trial. He received a sentence of 12 years in prison for his role in the events that led to Kayleigh's death. But for Kayleigh's family, no sentence could ever be enough. No amount of prison time could bring their daughter back or erase the horror of what had been done to her.